Hey there everybody, today we are going to be taking a look at a deck that a lot of you have been asking for, so I'm excited to show it to you. I finally tacked down the 60. This is a good deck. It's a lot of fun. It's got a pretty good win ratio. I mean, it's not exactly going to mop the floor up with every deck you come across, but it is a lot of fun. Let's take a look at the numbers here. We've got 0 creatures. That is not a glitch. That is exactly how many creatures we are running. We have 36 other spells, 24 lands. Look at our strength and control is off the charts with this one. Looking over here, our mana curve, we've got some interesting things going on. We've got 3 1-drops, we've got 17 2-drops, 8 3-drops, and 4 4-drops. This is kind of the rule of 3s in this deck. I've got tons of 3s up here. We'll talk about that in a minute. Instead of running the 4 full play sets of 4, we're running a lot of 3s. But it's okay because we have such an early weight. You know what I mean? We're coming in at 2 and 3 very, very heavily. That's going to allow us to get to the 4, 6 pluses and stuff like that, which are going to be more of our win cons. One of those 2s actually, or 2 of those 2-drops are going to be our win cons as well, because it doesn't take into account, you know, that extra X cost. So, you know, it breaks down to 5 white spells, 18 blue, and then 11 red as far as it's concerned. And then we've got 2 other up there. But what this deck is really taking a look at in terms of mana curve is that it's very heavily blue, and we don't have a lot of white spells. You can see here's all our white spells right here. But the thing with this deck is that we need to see white, so we need to see that planar cleansing. Red is our win con color pretty much, so we need to see that as well, and we did bring that in. But the fact that white is so important because of this planar cleansing and because of the reprisal, which is great targeted removal, really affected the way that the mana breaks down, which we will talk about right now. Actually, let's talk about the mana and get that out of the way. Because, like I was saying, white is like our secondary color. So the way we want to attack that is we want to have some dual lands. They're going to produce that white for us. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. As far as blue and red, we want blue and red to come down fast, and we want it to be a strong presence on the board. So our blue and red colors are right here where they need to be at 7 and 6 respectively, 7 for the islands and 6 for the mountains. Whereas with plains, we were able to just put 3 dedicated plains down there, which is a nice amount by, you know, lots of stretches of the imagination. But what we're actually looking for is, since white is a secondary, like a tertiary color that we don't want to see too often, what we really love to do is put in these Azorius Guild Gates and these Boros Guild Gates, because they're going to give us those blue mana or red mana when we need them to, which is going to be 9 times out of 10, but also double as our 3rd color. That's the way I like to break down the mana a lot. I like to make, when you make a 3-color deck, you're almost always going to have 1 primary color or 2 primary colors with a 3rd one that's just kind of along for the ride. In this particular game, they've given us these dual duty gates that are really able to pull either mana for us. So what we want to do is we want to keep that 3rd color relatively light as far as basic lands are concerned, and have it really show up in the guild gate form, which is what we've done here. And the mana base on this is actually, I think it's spot on. It's running very well. We're usually not in trouble or wanting to cast anything. So when you look at it, we've got 11 white sources. I mean, that's a ton. But we've also got that blue and red when we need it. So it's perfect. It's good. I like the way it looks. So now we're going to go through here and we're going to talk about 3 copies of Reprisal. Reprisal is targeted removal. It's also very important because a lot of people started to run, and this was kind of early on in this game's life cycle. So I'm not sure if this is still happening, but a lot of people started to run, we'll get to them, started to run Terra Stomper. Okay, and you can see Terra Stomper here can't be countered. And this deck can deal with an uncounterable creature. It can deal with 1 uncounterable creature. But I started running into people dropping both of these guys, and that started to become a problem for me. So I put in the Reprisals, and of course they're a utility card. They're going to take care of anything with power 4 or greater. I want to move on to another card in the removal suite really quickly so that we can talk about that. We've got Anger of the Gods, which is 3 damage to each creature, and it exiles it. So we've got 2 of those. So really, between those 5 cards, we can deal with pretty much any power toughness combination you might have going on. Now, of course, there are some things that, you know, fall into different categories, 04s or stuff like that, but we don't give a shit about walls because we don't deal combat damage. So anything that's really in that 1-4 category, anything like that, if they equipped it up and it's like a 2-4 wall, we don't really care about that. We're on a 10-turn clock, and we'll figure out a way to get rid of that creature at some point. Reprisal is very powerful. We run 3 copies of that. Now, a control deck like this absolutely has to have Planar Cleansing. That's kind of why White's in here. Reprisal is a nice bonus, but Planar Cleansing is the main course. We have 2 copies of this because a deck like this, where we really don't have any vested interest in the field, we're kind of just always doing stuff that's, you know, above the field, casting spells, bouncing stuff. We want to have a reset button. We absolutely need desperately a reset button. So both copies of Planar Cleansing are in here. Speaking of resets, we have 3 copies of Voyage's End, which allows us to scry and bounces some big threat. It ties them up early game. It can disrupt their plans late game. It's a good, solid card to have. I like Voyage's End because I get to scry. I think it's probably the best bounce card in the format because I get to scry as a result. And mana isn't really a problem in this one, so the 1 mana ones obviously are stronger, but the fact that I get to scry in this particular pile makes Voyage's End the best option for bouncing stuff back into their hands. Now this might throw a couple of people off. I'm running 3 Think Twice. So what you're going to see a theme through this is like the Try Hard, which is now the name of this deck, Try Hard TRI. But what we're working on is kind of an idea that having 3 copies of a lot of these cards allows us to branch out and have multiple iterations and multiple things going on, especially when our removal suite really boils down, aside from those 5 cards, to negating and countering everything they have to do. I want kind of that gamut of counters. Like 3 Dissolves is awesome because they can counter anything, but Nullify you don't want to see all the time, and Negate you don't want to see all the time. So having 3 copies of each card allows me to hit that 60, but diversify what I have in my pack a lot better. Think Twice is an amazing card, of course. It gels perfectly with what ends up being one of our big win cons, the Sphinx Bone Wand. But the important thing for this is the card draw. So I have 3 Think Twice and the full 4-pack of Inspiration. Those are going to allow us to really draw ourselves out of a lot of issues. Think Twice, of course, has 2 triggers on it, which is going to activate the Sphinx Bone Wand once we find that. So it's a fantastic card. I shouldn't really have to say how good Think Twice is. 3 of those. 2 Negates, like I said, I mean, these are just our counters. 3 Nullifies, because Negate you don't always want to see. Nullify can take care of a lot of nasty shit that Negate could take care of, because auras are a little important to those aggro piles. So Nullify is not actually that bad. Negate's a good time, so 2 of those, 3 Nullify, 3 Dissolves, love scrying. Like I said, 4 Inspiration to draw more cards, 3 Shock. I had 4 Shock for a long time, 3 Shock because it allows us to actually run that second Negate. Volcanic Geyser comes in at 3. This is a win con. We can use one of them, to punch our opponent's creatures and get rid of something that way. It is instant speed, so it's an excellent way to do that. So we can use one of them. Maybe if you are a crazy person, maybe 2. But do not throw all 3 Volcanic Geysers at a creature. We've got ways to deal with creatures. I mean, you're going to have to double up or do something if something's pounding you that bad. But we've got other better ways to deal with creatures. And we do not want to waste one of our, 5 win cons, 6, 8 win cons, I guess, against a stupid creature. We don't want that. Anger of the Gods, we already talked about 2 copies of that, like we said. Bolts of Karanos. This thing comes in at 3 because it allows me to scry. I know it's sorcery speed, but we get a lot of mana very quickly. We don't need to cast this on turn 3. We don't give a shit about turn 3. we're very slow, okay? So once we have enough mana to cast 6 mana, 5 mana, whatever we need to be at to cast that bolt and still have some kind of cancel on lock, that's when we start slinging those, and that's when we're happy about it. Sphinx Bone Wand, we're usually all in on the Sphinx Bone Wand because it's a 7-drop. This is our main win con. I mean, this all is going to damage their face. And of course, Shock is in here because it has the ability to damage the face or kill something small. So you've got these 6, 9, 10, 11 cards that you're going to be really using to damage your opponent. When you look at it, that's not that bad. I mean, that's a lot of direct damage. You know, this alone is 9 right here with the bolts, and then you've got this variable amount right here. So I actually like this a lot. The good thing about this deck with Sphinx Bone Wand, I was trying to think of how to say that, is that we have the Voyage's End. So if we totally screw the pooch, a lot of times we're going to have to tap down on turn 7 if they're running blue or anything like that to make sure Bone Wand hits the field. Because as you can see, it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery. So if they're running blue, we no longer care if they prevent the damage or do anything like that, if they counter spell it, because this is still going to go off. So we need Bone Wand to hit the field, but we also want to have counters open. But we don't really want to wait till turn 9 to drop that thing. So that's where Voyage's End comes in. If they play a big scary creature, you can bounce it back to their hand. Of course, you don't love to do that if it's something like Runescarred Demon, which gets them a card, or something that has a enter the battlefield effect. You don't want that to happen. But unfortunately, Sphinx Bone Wand is too important to leave until later. It is just a nice contingency plan to have the Voyage's End. Some things I do want to just bring up here very quickly, if we move into these colors here, and I guess we can get rid of all creatures. And artifact, well, yeah, artifacts don't really matter, so, because we already talked about those. So there's not a whole lot up here that you would want to put in this deck other than that, but I want to talk about some stuff that you need to be wary of and be aware of. Solemn Offering, bad times for Sphinx Bone Wand. Don't forget Solemn Offering exists. That's why you kind of want to lay it at 9 mana, have a nice negate or something going on. Luckily, there's like 3 people that run this card, and they all run a very specific deck, so you should be able to pick out the Solemn Offering potential rather easily, and hopefully we'll see that throughout the week and be able to talk about it. It's pretty much all that life gain with the Angel, Angelic Garbage. We'll run this sometimes to try and get a free Angel off of you, because it usually doesn't screw the deck, but losing Sphinx Bone Wand is a big punch in the dick. Also be mindful of when you board wipe, because that will total your Sphinx Bone Wand as well. And you can wait till turn 9. You've got a lot of stuff to do, but remember, we only have 6, 7, 8. We only have 8 counters here. And, you know, the 2 board, we've got a lot of stuff to do, but when you start using counters in this deck, kind of keep a idea in the back of your mind of what you're losing. I thought about putting Angelic Edict in here and then re-adding the Quicken. If you remember, we had Quicken in here for a really long time. It allowed me to instant speed Plan or Cleanse, and god damn was that amazing. But I had to take the Quicken out to put the Reprisal in. I absolutely had to, and that kind of shut down any idea of Angelic Edict. Not that you're gonna, I mean, it cantrips when you don't want to cast a sorcery, but that thing gels really nicely with the Anger of the Gods and Bolt of Keranos, because you get to draw a card as well. I love Quicken personally, but I need Shock. I mean, you're going down here and you're like, what can I possibly get rid of? And due to the format, I can't be doing crazy tricks like that, which sucks balls, because I would really love to. And then a case could be made for Divine Verdict instead of Reprisal, but like I said, we can kind of take care of everything with Anger of the Gods and Reprisal, and Divine Verdict obviously takes care of a lot of stuff too. But Reprisal is a little bit better if they have something that triggers when multiple creatures attack. Not too often, but a lot of people are running the blue draw card enchantment now, which we'll try and just look at. But maybe we won't get to see it. Yeah, this thing, I mean, you don't really want that to happen. If you're going to kill the creature anyway, you want to kill it before it attacks. So there are just small things like that. If you have any questions about this pile, if you have some more cards that you want to talk about that I didn't specifically talk about in this last end section right here, definitely hit me up. We're going to change the name of this thing to Try Hard, and we are going to try our best to win us some games. This is No Creatures. It's a super fun build. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments, and I will see all of you tomorrow on the high seas, where our ship will attack, and we will never leave any survivors, because once you leave a survivor, it's all just work, work, work all the time, because word gets out, and nobody's going to respect you. I'll see you guys tomorrow. The Dread Pirate Roberts has come for your souls.